This guy gets isekai'd into his favorite evil strategy game and wakes up as the final boss of a creepy civilization. With his slime girl sidekick, he spreads doom, builds a monster nation, and somehow becomes the nicest evil overlord ever. Takuto is playing a game on his PC when he suddenly passes out and wakes up in a strange world. He is on a low-budget throne in a forest-like place. While enjoying the cool air, a cute lady approaches him and refers to him as King. Atu is a character Takuto loved the most in Eternal Nations, a strategy game set in a dark fantasy world he played while on his sickbed. He doesn't know what to do, as Atu referring to him as King means she sees him as the leader of Minagra. Atu informs him that he has achieved the feat of clearing nightmare difficulty while using the civilization said to be the most difficult to handle, the civilization of Ruin, Minagra. Takuto is a legendary player and ranks at the top. As Atu reminisces about how they conquered the world together many times, Takuto just stares at her like a dummy while she yaps away. He questions whether Atu summoned him to this world, but she was also isekai'd here. She explains that the world they are in is similar to Eternal Nations. Taking his hand, Atu tells him how happy she is to meet him in person and proposes that they build a kingdom just for the two of them, to which our pajamas-clad king agrees. Atu dramatically pledges her loyalty to him. They then decide to isolate themselves from other civilizations. Takuto produces a really ugly scout, which they make use of anyway. His emergency production calls for an emergency because what is that? It's like if a bug had a failed plastic surgery. Their plan is to gather information about other civilizations without being discovered by anyone. The long-legged bug, acting on Takuto's orders, runs off to check the area around them. Its voice makes cricket and mosquito noises sound like melody. Takuto can also share the long-legged bug's vision, just like in the game. He calculates the mana they have used and realizes that they don't have enough to create a warrior. Atu offers to fight instead, but Takuto knows that if they face a higher-ranking monster, she would be easily defeated, putting Minagra in a risky position. No need to worry that much, they could scare away even Godzilla with that weird scout bug they've got. So far, their flash, long-legged scout bug has not encountered any animals or monsters. Takuto passes this information to Atu, who then realizes how useless she is to them. Takuto comforts her, and she goes right back to her bubbly self. Eventually, the bug stumbles upon a community of dark elves, confirming that they're indeed in a fantasy world. Takuto knows that if there is another civilization nearby, it would be bad for them since he is trying to avoid war, which is the reason he wants them to stay hidden for now. According to Takuto, Minagra is a peace-loving civilization, so he suggests they just observe the elves while gathering more information on their surroundings. Atu applauds him, and they do a weird hee-hee-hoo chant. Just then, some dark elves enter their territory, and both parties are surprised to see one another. A little flashback: Jia, the head warrior of the dark elves, is leading his team to search for food for their dying population. One of his team members suggests leaving the forest, but they would have nowhere else to go. Elm is worried that, since they are in an accursed land, they might not find anything good, but Jia encourages them not to give up. They continue walking and soon encounter Takuto and Atu. To the dark elves, Takuto appears as a really dark being, literally. Jia is shaking in his boots or elf shoes. He knows that any action he takes could affect the fate of his entire tribe. He decides to bend the knee, and his followers follow suit. They really gave our boy the statue of God treatment from Solo Leveling. He introduces himself and his clan, the Mazaram clan, while being very careful with his words. When Atu asks him why he trespassed, he explains, still trembling, that his clan was persecuted and driven from their land. Jia adds that they ran out of food along the way and have been unable to find more. He recalls the sufferings they've endured and is terribly upset when, suddenly, an apple appears before him. Takuto produces more, but Jia is too scared to eat it. Not his people, though, who have already dug in. Getting unalived by starvation isn't an option. At this point, they get apples from Snow White's stepmother even. Seeing them enjoy the food, Takuto produces pears and enough provisions for their entire clan. Everyone is happy except for Atu. The dark elves depart with the food and return to their camp. Elves who are almost giving up can rejoice as Jia and the others bring back lots of food. Everyone eats to their satisfaction, and the camp becomes lively once again. When Jia is asked how he managed to get the food, he simply says he happened to find it. Later, Jia sits by the fire and is joined by Moltar, the leader of the dark elves. Moltar compliments Jia but senses that something is wrong. Jia tells him about his encounter in the forest and describes Takuto as a legendary being. Moltar assumes Jia has met the King of Ruin. He knows of a prophecy that speaks of the king who would bring ruin to all and force everything to start over from scratch. Jia admits that Takuto was beyond their understanding, but Atu had clarified his words to some extent. Moltar, however, is unsure if the being Jia encountered in the forest is truly the King of Ruin, but he knows it's not anything good. Now that he's full, he senses that the forest is abnormal. He questions whether Jia offered Takuto anything in return, as an evil being would not grant charity without expecting something in exchange. Moltar grows even more upset when Jia refers to Takuto as "Your Grace" and scolds him for it. Jia doesn't care. Takuto helped them, and it's only natural to show him respect. Bro really tasted the food and named the mysterious Dark Lord Your Grace. Moltar decides he will handle any further negotiations with Takuto as the leader of the elves. Meanwhile, Atu is talking Takuto's ears off about being so generous and wasting their scarce mana. Takuto apologizes, saying he'll do anything she asks. She feels he is doing too much, but her mood softens when he tells her he needs needs her. She apologizes for going off on him. Takuto seizes the opportunity to confess that he felt too awkward to say anything meaningful to the elves. Atu, however, thought he was simply playing the role of a lord who dislikes long-winded speeches. Their conversation continues with the bug observing quietly, looking like it annoyed the Hulk along the way and got its face rearranged in a serious beatdown. Molter and Gia plan to return to Takuto, eager to learn what he demands in return for his favor. They know that to survive, they need Takuto's powers, and if they leave the forest, they will struggle to find food again. So basically, they need Takuto because Bro can magically produce food. They set out. Meanwhile, Bug was watching them. Bug announces its presence with an ear-piercing sound. When Atu scolds Bug for interrupting her conversation with Takuto, he explains that he summoned it. Bug informs Takuto that the Dark Elves are on their way. Takuto still believes that having them nearby will cause problems. He wants to tell them to take the food and leave soon, but his communication skills suck, just like yours. Atu offers to be his spokesperson and pass on whatever information he wants to say, helping him increase his aura. They come to an agreement, and Atu is more than happy to help out. When Molter and Gia arrive, Molter introduces himself to Takuto. After Atu permits him to speak, Molter thanks Takuto for the food and asks for Takuto's name. Takuto nods to Atu to share, and she does, but stresses that they have to address both her and Takuto respectfully. Molter promises to engrave their esteemed names into the souls of his people. It's really not that deep, bro. Anyways, Takuto is pleased that everything is going well until Atu asks them to take the remaining food and leave. That's when Molter reveals the real reason for their visit. Molter asks how they can repay Takuto's kindness toward the elves, but Atu assures them that there are no strings attached. Even if there were, they wouldn't be able to satisfy Takuto because they are poor. When Molter hesitates to respond, Atu's expression darkens and she assumes they are plotting something. Now things are not really looking good. Takuto calls Atu aside and she immediately shifts to her bubbly self. He shares what he wants, but Atu is not having it. She feels that they should slay all the elves and put their heads on a pillar. It's giving evil queen energy, only that she's not a queen. Takuto reminds her that they want to build a good relationship with the elves, and her plan will not really get the job done. Atu reluctantly informs the elves that Takuto is willing to accept a price in return for his kindness. Molter thanks him for even considering it, and Takuto can sense that Molter is worried he might demand something evil. Atu then wonders what price they should ask for, and Takuto asks for information about the world beyond the forest. Molter eagerly agrees to share everything he has heard and witnessed. Atu tells them to leave the forest once they finish their discussion. Molter requests permission to stay with them in the forest, but Atu is quick to say no. Gia wants to insist, but Molter stops him and thanks Takuto for even listening. As they walk away, Takuto questions whether he made the right decision. He knows they have no chance of survival elsewhere. He calls them back and offers them the chance to become his citizens. They are all surprised, and Atu asks Takuto what he aims to achieve. He explains that he was considering using a refugee system. He knows dark elves are neither good nor bad, and that if they accept them as refugees into their civilization, they would become evil beings like them and would be able to coexist. Atu insists that dark elves are different from Minogra's main citizens, the homunculi, and that there is a risk of conflict. Takuto reminds her how disgustingly ugly the homunculi look and asks if she can bear a life with only them as citizens. Atu sees his point and agrees. She relays the information to the elves and also informs them that once they become citizens of Minogra, they will turn evil. As Takuto and Atu make their way through the forest to the elves' camp, Atu notes that it took quite a while for the elves to agree to become citizens, but Takuto understands how difficult it was for them to accept even after knowing they will become evil, even though it's their best option. Upon arriving at the camp, the elves bow in respect. Takuto's aura is so powerful that it causes one elf to pass out. The others avoid looking directly at him, fearing it would be disrespectful. Takuto takes his seat on the elven throne, and Atu announces that they are all accepted as citizens of Minogra. A system message appears notifying them of the agreement. Atu officially declares their citizenship status and promises them safety under Takuto's rule. Gio wonders why they haven't turned evil yet, and just then, he begins feeling a crazy rise of hatred deep within him. Hatred for those who oppress them. Every elf feels it too, followed by the joy of being cared for by Takuto, and they begin to cheer for him. Atu is satisfied with this. A few days after establishing the kingdom of Minogra, Takuto looks at the map of the continent that Molter gave him and realizes they're screwed. He throws a fit in frustration. There are two large nations on their continent. The first is the Holy Kingdom of Qualia, which worships the holy god Arlos and adheres to a strict good alignment. The second nation is an elven realm that worships nature and also aligns with good. Knowing that if the other nations discover their evil kingdom, they will be attacked, and since Minogra lacks military strength to defend itself, they're basically screwed. Realizing their situation, Atu joins Takuto on the ground. After some time of crashing out, Takuto decides to stay positive. Atu mentions that the Dark Elves are on their way to provide a report on the world beyond. This time, Molter and Gia come with Emla, whom they introduce to Takuto as an intelligent woman who knows much about legends and other nations. Atu informs them about the key positions they are to handle in the administration. Molter is assigned to manage state affairs, making use of his magic as well, while Gia will continue his role as head warrior and assist in the recruitment process. Both accept their roles, but Gia does too much as he promises to end their enemies in gruesome ways. Takuto tells him to calm down. Gia is shocked that an evil lord doesn't like violence and prefers peace. Atu tells them to get plenty of rest rest so they can start their work soon. Gia and Molter begin to argue about who is stronger and insist that they don't need rest. Emily, feeling left out, promises to do her best. Atu comments that the Dark Elves are workaholics. Takuto comes up with an idea to keep them busy and suggests improving the terrain. Atu explains to Molter what he needs to do, and he gives her his word that he will do his best. Gia is confused as to why the King of Ruins is not planning to destroy the forest. Takuto tells them to reforest too, but they have never heard of it. Atu takes the time to explain the concept to them. She discusses military magic and the 6 major elements, but Molter has only heard of 4. Molter is worried that Takuto is disappointed with their level of magical technology. However, Takuto believes they have a chance to get ahead of other nations once they advance it. Atu explains what reforestation is and says they'll use magic elements to speed up the tree growing process, which usually takes centuries to grow. She credits this knowledge to Takuto, which is not true, but the elves are impressed. Emily asks if Takuto also created the food they ate, and Atu agrees, adding that she loves grapes. Emily then mentions that she planted grape seeds and they are growing. Takuto and Atu are surprised, realizing they had overlooked the fact that they could use emergency production to create things that had never existed in the game. Takuto decides to test this ability by producing a coin. He quickly realizes the countless things he could create, despite it being mana-consuming. He bursts out laughing in realization, while Emily worries she may have done something wrong. Atu tells her that she did a great job. In the kingdom of Qualia, Selena and a few guards are making their way through a snowy forest. The guards gossip among themselves about Selena's special power. Suddenly, they are approached by a group of goblins. The guards prepare to fight, but Selena casts a spell of destruction, calling down fire from the sky to burn the goblins. The cardinal sees Selena as an ultimate weapon. After the goblins are burned, the fire ascends back into the sky and beams of light shine down, causing flowers to bloom. The guards are shocked, but Cardinal explains that this is how their nation has managed to fend off evil and maintain a good relationship with the Elven nation. He informs them that Saint Selena of Blooming Burials is one of the 7 great saints of the Idaragia continent. Cardinal then tells Selena that he has sent paladins to a nearby village. When Selena inquires about their earlier conversation regarding the apocalypse in the accursed lands and her request to dispatch paladins to investigate, he informs her that the central authority would never agree to it. Selena insists that she will go on her own, but Cardinal warns her against it, telling her she is no longer the simple village girl she used to be. Seeing as she's not backing down, he reluctantly agrees to send some people and walks away cussing at her. Back in Minagra, Atu encourages the people to start working on construction. Before long, the work is complete, and Takuto loves the results. Atu is eager to begin building their civilization. The administrators gather for a council meeting, but before they start, Emily gifts Takuto an outfit, and now he looks like a femboy. During the council meeting, Takuto becomes distracted by how much he loves his chair and struggles to concentrate. They decide to proceed without him. The council discusses community affairs, and Atu presents a weird-looking talking flesh tree that will be planted for food. The elves are surprised, having never seen anything like it before. Atu explains that it's one of their civilization's food production facilities. This tree grows human meat and produces a large harvest. Takuto claims it feels illegal, and Moltar expresses concern that the people might not want to consume human flesh. Atu assigns Emily the task of planting the tree, and when it speaks to her, she becomes more frightened. The council discusses other topics, including research and magical technology. Atu says they need to focus on military magic, as ordinary magic can only be used to attack a few people, unlike military magic that can attack a larger population. Moltar agrees to oversee recruiting for the magical research. When it comes to military planning, Gia volunteers to organize an army, but Takuto states that they do not plan to spend effort on that. Atu adds that armies do not produce anything and instead consume magic. Gia points out that their current warriors lack the strength to protect the king, and Moltar notes that he and Gia have a bounty on their heads for leading the elves. Everyone turns to Takuto for a solution, and he suggests they create a hero. Atu believes it's a good idea, explaining that while they may have high production costs, heroes have low upkeep costs. She explains that in Minagra, there are several heroes who serve under the king. These heroes are powerful, possess special abilities, and are all monsters. She says there's several conditions to meet to be able to summon them, but they should soon be able to summon one soon. They reach a conclusion, and Takuto is happy. He reveals that they also get mana from the citizens, and the amount is proportional to the citizens' happiness. This means that the happier the citizens, the more the nation can develop. Takuto promises to lead the people to happiness. Meanwhile, in Qualia, Lonius is praying when Verdel interrupts him. As they talk, Lonius's necklace catches Verdel's attention. Lonius quickly hides it, but Verdel notices that he's using his wedding ring as a protective charm. Verdel asks about Lonius's wife and child, which Lonius refuses to discuss at first but eventually does. As they walk out, Lonius knows that there are many rumors about Verdel being crude and ill-mannered, and he doesn't beat the allegations, but his skills are great. Verdel wonders why they are being sent to the Dark Continent, and Lonius explains that it is to investigate a revelation Selena received. He understands that if they succeed, they will be well regarded by the Congress of the Southern Province, but if they fail, they will be held responsible as the Under-Paladin. Verdel tells Lonius that the army put together for a revelation from a saint looks rather shabby. Only the 2 of them are paladins, the others are mercenaries. Lonius doesn't know what the high high-ups are playing at, sending him on this mission before his departure. As they step outside, they are greeted by a group of mercenaries. Verdel, still being playful, suggests they begin their journey. Despite finding Verdel annoying, Lonius knows that he is a high paladin and will improve their team's chances of survival. Meanwhile, in Monogra, Takuto and Atu go to inspect the progress the elves are making, and Takuto is pleased with what he sees. The residential areas are designed with treetop architecture, but not much progress has been made on the homes, as the focus has been on the flesh trees. Emily informs them that the flesh trees are growing well and that the storehouse will soon be completed. At the Magic Research Institute, Elder Moltar is leading several talented individuals to get started on the magical research. Emily mentions a spring they discover nearby to secure a water supply. Takuto is grateful for Emily's efforts, especially for thinking of securing the water source. He remembers how different the Dark Elves were when he first met them, compared to how vibrant and full of life they are now, which brings him great joy. Takuto praises Emily, saying he is glad he accepted the elves as citizens. Touched by his words, Emily breaks down in tears. Later, she takes them to the flesh tree farm to continue the inspection. Apologizing for her earlier outburst, she informs them that the trees are almost ready for harvest and thanks Takuto for the quality farming tools he provided. Takuto promises to supply more quality tools for the people. Just then, one of the trees tells Emily that it is almost ripe, creeping her out. Emily then leads them to the water source but is disappointed, assuming the water is no longer fit for consumption because of how it now looks. Moltar and Gia join them. They came to see about building an aqueduct with the water source but are also disappointed to find out the water seems contaminated. Atu tells them not to worry and drinks the water. She assures them it's safe and explains that since they're in the cursed terrain, the water changing is proof that the land has become a part of Minagra's domain. Takuto asks the elves to take a deep breath, and when they do, they feel their abilities improving. Atu explains that the cursed terrain provides benefits to evil beings and penalties to neutral and good beings. Gia takes a sip from the water and he's okay. Takuto says the cursed terrain is perfect for defense, but one problem is that the area stands out, and if the entire region becomes like that, it'll be easier to get discovered. Gia suggests they start forming an army, but Atu reminds them that Takuto is going to create a hero soon. Moltar confesses that they didn't understand the earlier talk about a hero, and Atu decides to demonstrate. Tentacles grow from her back, and in an instant they destroy several trees behind her. The elven trio is shocked. They also find out that Atu is a hero. She reveals that this is only a fraction of her abilities, and that heroes can single-handedly wipe out armies. Takuto adds that heroes are overpowered, do not stand out, and continuously grow stronger over time without any training. This comes as a shock to the elves. Takuto tells Atu to clean up the mess she made, saying she did too much. Gia offers to help. They're really impressed with Atu's powers. Moltar suggests building a palace for Takuto, but he says he doesn't need one. After much convincing, he finally gives in and accepts, saying he needs a floating castle. The elves are not sure if it's possible, but they believe he can make it happen. The Dark Elves pledge their loyalty to Takuto once again. Meanwhile, Lonius and his team defeat some goblins on the way and continue their journey. Lonius and the army, or mercenaries, continue on their journey to the Dark Forest. Verdel praises Lonius for hiring a large mercenary group, and Lonius says he got lucky as most of the mercenaries are already fighting up north. The Northern Disturbance, as Verdel calls it. The two start talking about the rising attacks from barbarians and how Saint Selena and the army are busy trying to clean up that mess. Mercenary leader Bargo chimes in, cracking a joke about some witch being involved in all the chaos up north and that he's staying far away from that business. Later at an inn, Lonius decides to get some actual info out of Bargo about this witch in the north. Rumor. Bargo admits it's all just talk. Hearsay, nothing concrete, but the timing is suspicious. Before the conversation can go anywhere, drunk Verdel interrupts. He proceeds to twist their holy doctrine to excuse his overindulgence. Lonius tries to give a proper, clean interpretation of the text, but Verdel immediately turns it into a "you want to argue religion right now?" moment. Then Bargo says he suspects that the Dark Continent mission is actually witch-related. Verdel shuts it down, says it's just about some dark elves hiding out there. The higher-ups just don't want them causing trouble. Meanwhile, back in the Dark Continent, Takuto has assembled the Dark Elves and Atu for a live performance of "Watch Your King Make Life Out of Creepy Fruit." In front of everyone, he channels magic into a pile of flesh tree fruits, and from it emerges that same cursed bug from earlier, the one that looks like a plastic surgery horror story. The Dark Elves are surprised, but Atu is hyping him up like a sports commentator. She tells the crowd there's more where that came from. The crowd cheers. Takuto, inwardly, is just hoping no one notices how ugly the thing is. Later in his tent, Takuto and Atu are basking in their production success. Atu says this proves they can safely perform bigger summons now, and her eyes sparkle when she suggests it's finally time to summon a hero. Takuto already has one in mind. Isla, Queen of Bugs. She's not just a fighter, she boosts all insect units, produces larvae, and handles domestic work. Basically the ultimate all-rounder. Also, she's less of a chaotic disaster than the other heroes. Back with Lonius and crew, they've crossed into the Dark Continent when they come across a hill giant. Lonius is about to give the order for an arrow shootout, but Verdel stops him, saying they don't have time to waste. He then proceeds to solo the thing himself because, let's be honest, he just wanted the X.P. He unleashes a holy sword art, blending prayer with blade work, and hits with divine force said to rival a lesser dragon. The giant doesn't stand a chance. Lonius tries to compliment him, but Verdel just walks away like it was nothing. Lonius silently fumes. Back at Takuto's base, Atu is giving him grief over his diet. He's eating a hamburger, she's on her eternal salad grind, and they both think the other is doing it wrong. They shift the topic to the ongoing construction, and then Takuto remembers something. He tells Atu to gather everyone after they eat. Thanks to his bug scouts, Takuto can now see beyond the forest. He checks the map, sees Qualia's position, and notes which nearby city might be their ally. That's when he senses the mercenaries approaching. Not ready to be discovered, he sends Atu to politely turn them away. Spoiler, her version of politeness might not match his. At the edge of the accursed lands, Verdel, Lonius, and the mercs are halted by a hooded figure stepping from the shadows. She claims to be a dark elf refugee, says her people just want peace and that the Holy Knight's arrival is scaring them. She asks them to turn back. Verdel insists they must enter. Lonius tries to chime in, but Verdel snaps at him like he just insulted his mother. The back and forth continues. She swears there's nothing dangerous in the forest, but Verdel tells her the truth. They're here because of a divine revelation about a calamity lurking inside. The mercs are stunned. Lonius, furious. That was a national secret and Verdel just said it out loud. Verdel basically tells him to shove it. Sometimes secrets need to be shared. Lonius is now convinced Verdel's a traitor and vows to report him. The hooded figure begs again for them to leave. Lonius senses bad vibes all over her and becomes convinced she's hiding something. Verdel asks her to swear by God that the forest poses no threat. She swears by her god. That's suspicious enough for Lonius, but Verdel suddenly calls it, investigation over, we're leaving. Lonius has had enough. He strips Verdel of command, calling him out for spilling secrets and abandoning the mission. He orders the mercs to follow him into the forest. Verdel orders Bargo not to, but Bargo reminds him they're on Lonius's payroll. Lonius even orders the hooded figure seized. Next thing Lonius knows, he's waking up on the ground in a puddle of blood. Around him, broken spears, shattered swords, and unalive men everywhere. The air is thick with iron and something far worse. Verdel stands nearby, grim-faced. He's sure they're up against a witch, and there she is, the hooded figure, holding several mercenaries up with her tentacles. She drops the disguise, smirking as she talks about how life doesn't always go the way you want. It's Atu. Meanwhile, Takuto can see everything that is happening. Verdel shouts at Bargo to send someone back home to inform them about what they have encountered. Bargo tells him that Atu has unalived their messengers. Atu confidently declares that she's the monster they've been looking for. She's really giving villain vibes. Verdel knows they have no choice but to fight, so he orders everyone into combat formation. Amused, Atu watches them prepare to defeat her. On Verdel's command, they fire arrows at her, but as a true hero, she effortlessly blocks every single one. Excited for the battle, Atu mocks their efforts. Verdel and Lonius, surprised by her prowess, listen as Atu claims it's Lonius's fault for prying into matters he shouldn't. Lonius then asks Verdel what is really going on. Verdel reveals that, although it is confidential, when a saint receives a revelation confirmed by the upper ranks, the monster is designated as a calamity and referred to as a witch. Atu interrupts their little chat. Verdel and Lonius decide to attack her themselves. They cast the Holy Sword spell and charge at Atu, successfully cutting off her tentacles. Atu is surprised. Verdel's strategy is to cut off her remaining tentacles first. However, Atu is unfazed. She knows about the divine attack. Verdel and Lonius attack again, cutting off one more each. Just then, Atu uses her last two remaining tentacles to attack two mercenaries, tying them up. She confesses that she underestimated them and assumes that they won't attack her for fear of hurting the men. To her, that's human weakness. But to her surprise, Verdel and Lonius, determined to win and protect their land, attack her, cutting off the last two, even if it meant hurting the two mercenaries. Verdel then attempts to finish Atu off, but she has been playing them all along and flashes a creepy smile. They played right into her trap. Blood drops on Lonius, it's Verdel's, and Atu has her tentacles in him, lifting him so everyone sees. He tries to tell Lonius to run, but she ends him before he can finish. Lonius, in shock, notices that Atu's tentacles have regrown. Realizing they have been played, he orders everyone to run, hoping at least one person will survive to warn their homeland. Lonius strikes at Atu again, but she defends using Verdel's sword. She's able to use the Holy Sword art, as she acquired the skill once she ended Verdel. She also acquired his fighting skills and knowledge. A fierce clash of swords ensues between them. Lonius then realizes that Atu steals everything from those she sends back to their creator, becoming stronger with each victim. Atu blames him for Verdel's death and tells him that Verdel was worried about him even till death. Lonius is pushed back by their clash. He has hope that the mercenaries have escaped. However, Atu has placed dark elves nearby to ensure that no one gets away. Realizing he is the last one left, Lonius attacks Atu again, but with a creepy smile on her face, she ties Lonius, leaving him suspended in the air. She feeds into his guilt, blaming him for everything that has happened, saying that if he had obeyed Verdel, he would have returned to his family. She then promises to end his family and whoever they had contact with before finally putting him out of his misery. Gia arrives to inform Atu about their successful elimination of the mercenaries. He questions whether she meant what she said to Lonius, but she laughs it off, claiming she was merely joking. She immediately excuses herself, saying she has information for Takuto. Once she has told Takuto everything, he realizes that their world is different from the game. Atu explains that although some game mechanics are applicable, they should operate with the mind that this world functions differently. But Atu's powers have improved better than in the game, and thanks to her new ability, they've learnt about the situation questioning Qualia. Atu is happy that Qualia won't have forces to spare because of the northern disturbance, but she knows they're going to take some action concerning what just occurred. Takuto assures her that Qualia doesn't have information on them, and so they would act with caution if they decide to act. He is more concerned about the northern disturbance caused by a witch, but they don't have much information about that, even with the knowledge Atu stole. Atu identifies the witch as Erakino, the slurping witch. Erakino has defeated all the mercenaries, and with a playful tone, she raises them to attack the next city. Takuto and Atu suspect that Erakino arrived the same way they did. Atu suggests that Takuto reach out to Erakino, but he's against it. Takuto is relieved that the trouble is happening far north and won't be their problem. Atu suggests they produce a hero, Isla, who Takuto has had in mind, but Takuto suggests they focus more on combat potential. Atu agrees and promises to support him. Takuto thanks her and adds that they should alter their policies and form an alliance with another nation. Atu doesn't think it'll be possible since they're evil aligned, to which Takuto says they'll work with a neutral aligned nation, the nation to their east. He says he needs to find out if they'll be willing to join forces with them. Meanwhile, in the north, Erakino leads her undead army to attack a city. The elder orders them to prepare for battle. Back at Managra, Atu is about to leave Takuto's presence when she suddenly apologizes for her bloodlust behavior earlier when going against the paladins. Takuto doesn't have a problem with it and tells her to just continue supporting him. This makes Atu happy, and she promises to support him with every fiber of her being. The Dark Elves are busy working while Karia and Maria watch them, wondering why they are still alive. After the palace has been completed, Takuto and Atu admire it both from the outside and the inside. In the midst of their admiration, Atu suddenly lets out an ear-piercing scream. When Takuto asks her what is wrong, she exclaims that she just realized there is not a single attendant to take care of him. Atu is being overly dramatic, and even Takuto points this out. He tells her that it's not a big deal, but she is determined to make things right. Takuto tells her he'd like someone he can talk to, preferably a little girl, as he hasn't been able to communicate with the Dark Elves and has been feeling lonely, adding that he wants to be a friendly king. Atu promises to fix that. With Takuto's permission, Atu summons Moltar and the others. She tells them about Takuto's request, but in a weird way that makes him seem like a pedo. They're all surprised Takuto is too, but Atu is the only one who is ignorant of how her words sound. After Takuto explains clearly, Moltar lets out an awkward laugh of relief. It definitely would be weird to have a pedo king. He then confirms that Takuto needs a child close by to attend to his daily needs. Dia adds that children have ideas that could be quite useful to adults, but questions if a little boy wouldn't do too. Atu responds that Takuto is trying not to reduce the labor force. Takuto quickly adds that another reason he specifically needs a girl is that he will train them to take on leadership positions in the future, as he is all about women's inclusivity. After the elves buy his BS, he breathes a sigh of relief that they actually believe him. Atu tells him to bring in the children, but when they do, all the kids are scared and start crying. Takuto sulks, and Atu asks Moltar if that's all the children. He agrees, but Gia mentions a certain set of twins. Moltar thinks it's a bad idea because the twins are somewhat odd, but Atu insists they should bring them so Takuto would decide for himself. Before Moltar can think of leaving, Gia has already brought the girls, bragging that he's faster than the old man. Karia introduces herself and her older sister Maria to Takuto. Atu feels they have a grim history and asks Karia about her scars. Karia explains they are from a disease, and when Takuto shows pity, she responds that it's what she deserves. Atu asks about Maria, and with a creepy look on her face, Maria says that she ate their mother. Everyone is surprised, and Atu asks Moltar to explain. Bracing himself, he tells them how the twins' mother sacrificed herself for them. Then it occurs to Takuto that the elves traveled a long distance after being driven from their homes. Without any food, it was only natural they would have to make extreme decisions to survive. Suddenly, Maria approaches the throne and makes a strange comment. Takuto asks if she is willing to take care of him, to which she happily agrees. He then tells her she is now a candidate for the leadership of Minogra. Atu is surprised that Takuto can hold a conversation with another person. Karia also agrees to serve Takuto, saying she has to stick with her sister. Gia and Moltar are relieved, and Atu officially declares that the twins would take care of Takuto. Moltar then steps forward and informs Takuto that the twins haven't cried since they lost their mother and their hearts have remained closed off. He asks Takuto to watch over them with mercy. Later that evening, Maria comes to serve Takuto a drink and accidentally spills it on him. He laughs it off, and Karia helps wipe the water off him. Atu enters to see them and is dissatisfied. She informs Takuto that they're about to have a meeting and tells the twins to attend as well. During the meeting, Emily gives a report on the construction and the remaining resources. Atu tells her to start the construction of a clinic next, as that'll guarantee everyone is in good health. The next topic is resources, which Emily is also in charge of. Atu realizes they lack staff, which is pretty obvious given that only 3 elves attend all board meetings. After Emily's report on resources, Moltar gives feedback on their research about military magic. He explains that presently, only he can perform the magic, and that casting powerful magic with the ruined mana being provided by the palace would be beneficial to them. Atu tells him to proceed as planned and move to the 6 major elements in the magic tree. The next subject is military, and Gia gives his own report. He tells them that the long-legged bugs are surveying surveying the territory surrounding the accursed lands, and they found out that the land beyond the forest is all plain. They're still being cautious and can't obviously go further. Atu informs them of their plan to produce a new hero, Isla, Queen of Bugs. She asks about the resources they need, and Moltar says they've secured it and have finished transporting them to the ritual site. Takuto realizes that only Mana is left, which means he's the one holding everyone back. The meeting continues for a while, and everyone is engaged except Takuto. At the end, everyone is tired and Atu dismisses them. Takuto returns to the throne room with the twins. Maria trips and scatters all the papers from the meeting. Korea rushes to help her, and they accidentally rip a paper. Takuto laughs it off and tells him it's okay. The twins are disappointed. When Takuto settles down, Maria asks him if he is a bad person, to which he agrees. Then she questions why he hasn't ended them. Takuto explains to them that an evil person has the freedom to do anything, whether good or bad, and he chose to be kind to them. Takuto realizes that the twins cannot forgive themselves for surviving due to their mother's death and are seeking salvation through death, which is why they made all these mistakes as rage bait so Takuto could unalive them. He feels pity for them and gives them some motivational words, encouraging them to live on for the sake of their mother. The twins are moved to tears, and Takuto comforts them. Atu comes in to find the twins asleep and comments on how Takuto has gotten close to them. She then takes him somewhere else to discuss. Atu informs Takuto about a city Forngon, a nation whose population are humans and beastmen, and a sub-city, Dragontan. The nation's parliamentary system is run by shamans known as the staff holders. Atu's report is about a dragon vein mine in the city that is capable of producing mana. She says they should secure it ASAP. Their strategy is to help the Dragontan folks, who are currently under attack by goblins and ogres, and welcome in their refugees. And then they'll go for Forngon next. Tonukapoli, a staff holder, arrives in the accursed lands with some people from Forngon and meets with Atu and several dark elves. The atmosphere is tense, and Tonukapoli senses their evil aura. She can tell they're not human. She warns her group not to attack out of panic. Atu instructs the elves to stand back. She's about to eliminate the beastmen when Pepe suddenly introduces himself and asks for Atu's name. His friendly nature causes Atu to change her mind. As they make their way back to Managra, Atu expresses her surprise that they sought an audience with Takuto. Pepe begins yapping about the various adventures he had on their journey, while Atu and Tonukapoli ignore him to continue their conversation. Upon arriving at the palace, Tonukapoli is frightened by Takuto's appearance, fearing that her choices have backfired. She recalls how Pepe almost defeated a hill giant, but it got back up, and Tonukapoli had to cast a spell to subdue it, allowing the warriors to finish the job. Tonukapoli scolds Pepe for not acting more like a leader, especially since he is the youngest staff holder, but Pepe is still being all goofy. Tonukapoli then informs him that they are heading to the accursed land, as they receive signs of the apocalypse there and were told to investigate. She knows that if the attacks continue, everyone will eventually be wiped out. This situation is worse for a detached city like Dragontan, as they cannot send an army to help, and she is uncertain whether the attacks are from the accursed land, so they need to go check. Tonukapoli regrets taking Pepe along to such a dangerous place. But Pepe's not scared. He approaches Takuto and introduces himself, suggesting they should be friends. Tonukapoli is extremely scared and immediately apologizes on Pepe's behalf, but Takuto's response is surprising to her. He accepts to be friends. Atu then congratulates him on making his very first friend. Tonukapoli can't understand what's going on. She's probably wondering, are they evil? Are they not? Everyone settles to eat except Takuto, who quietly watches them. Tonukapoli and Pepe are both served an apple drink. It's the first time they've tasted something so amazing. Tonukapoli also comments on the beauty and quality of the utensils, and Atu, as usual, sings praises of Takuto. Pepe asks for another drink, and Tonukapoli gives him that stern, motherly look, but bro doesn't care. He moves around chatting with everyone. Takuto envies Pepe's social skills. He knows he could never pull that off. It's his first time having a friend and he doesn't know what to do, but he knows he has to act friendly to prove they're not hostile. While Tonukapoli is scolding Pepe, Takuto calls his attention, asking to play a game together. Everyone pauses, all eyes on Takuto, and there's an awkward silence until Pepe happily agrees to play. They play a few games while the rest watch, and at the end, Pepe suggests that Takuto should sell the game to Forngon Jacko. Takuto agrees, as he had already planned to open trade between their two countries. After the meal, Pepe tries to rest as he's obviously full and a bit tired from all that running around. However, Tonukapoli interrupts his calm, saying he's too relaxed. What do women actually want? Takuto and Atu give each other a knowing look, and they go straight into business mode. Atu questions why Tonukapoli paid them a visit. Tonukapoli explains that barbarians have been attacking their country, when, naturally, barbarians should avoid large cities. She knows something is off. She mentions that they have come to the accursed lands to further their investigation. Takuto figures that they lack military might, but Tonukapoli, not wanting to be at a disadvantage, lies, claiming that they managed to drive off the barbarians and are merely trying to be safe by investigating, nothing too deep. She adds that two of their strongest staff holders have been sent to investigate. Everyone is impressed, until Pepe suddenly interrupts, saying he thought they came because their country would perish if they didn't find a solution. Tonukapoli is really mad now. Bet she regrets not letting the poor boy take a nap. Atu then let their intentions be known to Tanakoppali. She first of all informs Tanakoppali that they don't mean harm, as they're a nation of peace and would help them, but in return, Forngon would give joint control of their dragon vein mine. Tanakoppali thinks for a few seconds, then asks Pepe to decide, since he's the best judge of character in their nation. Pepe happily agrees, and they forge an alliance. Later that day, Takuto and his council have a meeting to discuss their next move. They have agreed to export provisions and toys to Forngon in exchange for daily necessities and metal goods. They know that if it weren't for Pepe's slip, they would not have reached an agreeable outcome. Karia asks to speak and questions what kind of country Forngon truly is. They realize they know very little about it. Takuto suggests they should focus on Dragontan since Forngon's capital is far away. Moltar questions what excuse they would use to visit another country, and with the newfound friendship between the two nations, thanks to Pepe, Takuto says that they can send out a few people to pay their respects before formally heading there. Moltar offers to go, but he's too important to Managra, and so is every other person at the table. Maria and Karia then offer to go, but Takuto cannot trust that they would be safe. After pleading with him for a while, Takuto eventually gives in, and Atu is kinda pissed that Takuto caved in to the pestering of someone other than her. Emily raises her concern that the twins cannot go alone. Takuto suddenly has a light bulb moment. He knows just the right guard for them. After the meeting, Atu is sulking. She's still pissed about the whole caving in situation. Takuto tries to explain, and Maria calls his attention. She tells him to tell Atu what he's thinking. This just upped Takuto's Riz game, and he does a very good job rizzing Atu that she cannot help but fantasize about being together with him in the future, making her all flushed. Later, Takuto and Atu take the twins to the newly built clinic where he shows them their guard, a unit they produced not long ago. The guards are eager to go on whatever mission Takuto has for them. These medics not only treat injuries and diseases, but they can also fight to protect themselves and others. Atu passes the mission Takuto has for them, and the medics are excited that they get to act like humans and accept the mission. Because of their enthusiasm, Takuto decides to give them names as a reward for the job they're about to do. This further adds to their excitement, and Maria is also really excited. The medics already start referring to each other by their new names, and they're quite dramatic about it. Maria matches their energy too, and Takuto is left wondering if he went too far. Meanwhile, in Dragontan, the mayor, Antalise, makes a fuss about all the work she has to do as mayor. She had assumed that after leaving the Elven nation, she would enjoy a carefree life and fall in love with a handsome man, but that was all delulu. Antalise is also upset that she has to work with evil beings to protect the city and says she has never heard of Minogra. Just then, a lady enters to inform her about visitors. The girl is scared of Antalise's appearance, so Antalise has to put on her pretty face, but immediately she hears she has visitors. She is back to her scary face and is not interested in seeing them until the girl says the visitors are from Minogra. Antalise meets with the twins looking all happy, but she is cautious about the medics because of their dark aura. When the twins introduce themselves to Antalise, she remembers that Tanakoppali mentioned that the twins are candidates for future leadership positions in Managra. Antalise realizes that if she treats the kids badly, it could cause major problems. She nervously asks what brings them to Dragontan. Since the twins are unable to answer, Jiro steps in and informs her that their visit is because Pepe, the staff holder, had invited them to come and play. He adds that they're there to learn about life in Dragontan. Antalise is confused, and Jiro explains that their visit is the first step to ensuring a peaceful and smooth exchange between their two nations in the future. Jiro adds that since the kids are still learning, Antalise should avoid bringing up official talks and should just consider them tourists. Antalise is relieved, but still knows she has to be careful not to offend the twins. Antalise then offers to show them around town, trying to make sure they leave with a good impression. She's also trying to dodge the tons of work she has to do. As they explore Dragontan City, Takuto observes them having fun, but Atu reminds him that he needs to continue working. Later that evening, after saying goodbye to Antalise, they review their findings from the day. Maria recalls that the citizens were not doing well. She is sensitive to people's emotions and can get a vague idea of how they feel. Jiro gives Maria something she requested. It's a popple grass. Karia is familiar with it and informs the others that the plant can cause powerful hallucinations, which is why it has been banned in most nations. Knowing it's not safe, Maria throws it away on Jiro's orders. Karia is aware that someone is cultivating the plant, and she feels bad for Annalise, who is doing her best for the city. Saburo says they have to be cautious going forward. The next day, they head to the Dragon Vein mine, which is breathtaking and brings back memories of their mother reminding them that the world is filled with beautiful things. Suddenly, this dude approaches them, ruining their beautiful moment. Vesta tells them that popple grass grows very well there, and asks them to join forces with him and grow popple there, since the land would be controlled by Managra too, and they're both evil aligned. He gives them a location to meet later that night to discuss the matter further. Although Karia takes note of the location, she is not interested in Vesta's proposal. The next day at the mayor's office, the twins thank Antalise for taking care of them, and she tells them to present her in the best light to Takuto. Just then, Vesta enters, and Antalise is not pleased to see him. Vesta doesn't care. He's here to get his reply from Karia. Upon hearing this, Antalise assumes that the kids are joining forces with Vesta against her. Karia catches a whiff of Annalise's thought and assures her that they're not interested in growing popple grass with him, which is why they did not visit the secret location he gave them. Karia then asks if Annalise would allow the medics to handle Vesta and his men, to which Annalise agrees. Vesta, however, is not intimidated. After all, he has the pulpal grass extract and threatens to inject the twins with it. Karia warns that he would be making an enemy out of Minagra if he laid hands on them, but Vesta doesn't care and insults Takuto. He also adds that one drop of the injection would make them do as he says. He signals his men to engage. The fight ends in seconds, with the medics brutally defeating the men. Vesta is left shocked by the swift defeat. Meanwhile, back at Minagra, during Takuto's lunch break, Elme questions why they decided to send the medics as the twins' guards instead of their warriors. A2 responds that even though the medics care for humans and demi-humans, they are not humans themselves. They possess the ability to heal and protect, but they can also inflict harm if necessary. They are referred to as brain eaters. Vesta is terrified as the medics try to clothe themselves in human skin. He pleads for his life, but Karia refuses to spare him since he said some evil things about their precious king, Takuto. Liz is scared, and Maria comforts her. She orders the medics to end him, and they do just that. This gives them enough skin. Elise is traumatized having witnessed the whole scene, and Karia apologizes to her for the mess. Elise tells her not to worry about it, trying to sound okay, but she's so scared she ends up wetting herself. The medics decide to join her so she won't be embarrassed, and Karia goes off on them, as mentioning it is embarrassing too. Atu is angry and scolds Takuto for allowing the medics to display such violence despite having the ability to warn them through his telepathy. Takuto explains that he didn't want them to hate him, which only upsets Atu more. She also scolds the twins for conspiring with Takuto and trying to cover it up, and then scolds the medics for their barbaric actions. Finally, she asks everyone to write a reflection statement, basically giving them time out. Later, they gather for a meeting to discuss what to do about Dragontan, and Atu is still very upset. Takuto, who cannot read the room, offers the twins some candy, which makes Atu lash out in frustration. Gia has to tell Atu that she is doing too much and should just chill out. The council agrees, and Moltar even takes the blame for the children's actions. Once Atu calms down, she starts the meeting about Dragontan. Moltar asks the twins to confirm that their report is accurate, and they agree, stating that Takuto also reviewed it. The council realizes that Dragontan is in serious trouble, facing attacks from barbarians, goblins, ors, and hill giants. Gia points out that the primary issue is the hill giants, who show up in groups near the city every day due to their ability to detect enemies. Gia warns that if nothing is done, it will only be a matter of time before Dragontan falls, and he suggests sending out their forces. However, Elm is against splitting their forces, saying that sending workers out will affect their construction and food production. Gia then proposes sending most of their warriors, and Atu declares that she will also participate as she plans to steal useful skills from the monsters. Takuto agrees with Atu, saying it is a good opportunity for her to improve her strength. Moltar also volunteers to join the mission. Gia then says that his warriors would be left to defend Minogra, and Elma expresses her worry that the nation's defense has always relied on Atu's presence, meaning they could struggle in her absence. In response, Takuto informs them that he plans to summon the hero Ayla to take over while Atu is away. Everyone gathers to witness Takuto summoning the hero. He is anxious since Isla is the first hero he will summon since arriving in Minagra, and he cannot predict her reaction. Atu assures him that if she tries to rebel against him, she will protect him with her life. Takuto begins the summoning ritual, and a few minutes later, Ayla emerges from the shell, looking like a giant grasshopper. Once she stands up, she recognizes Takuto and greets him as a loyal subject, promising to serve him. She also recognizes Atu and gives her a head pat, which Atu finds uncomfortable. Ayla requests that Takuto explain the situation to her. After he does, he mentions that he can only manage because Atu was by his side. Atu also compliments him, and they start acting all lovey-dovey, prompting Isla to interrupt them. She promises that she will protect the peace of their nation while Atu is away. Atu expresses how much she will miss Takuto, and they begin from where they left off with their affection, during which Isla comments that she shouldn't be watching that, and neither should we. The next day, Atu leaves for Dragontan with Moltar and some dark elves after saying goodbye to Takuto and the others. Isla is eager to begin her work and promises to do her best. Later, Takuto is still sleeping while it's morning, and the twins inform Ayla that he usually sleeps till noon, and sometimes Atu would come wake him up, or the twins would. Isla then scolds Takuto for always sleeping till noon, saying he is the leader of Minagra, so he has to be up in the morning, and Takuto promises to do his best. Isla then excuses herself, along with the twins, requesting that they show her the country's facilities. Takuto permits her, and the twins agree to give Isla a tour. She informs Takuto that his people will soon bring up some state matters, giving him a heads up. Just then, Elme enters, and Isla and the twins leave. Elm presents Takuto with some papers for him to review. Initially, he worries about how he will interact with the elves now that Atu is not around, but eventually, he does it pretty well. While the twins are showing Isla the facilities, they meet Elmi, who seems troubled and in a hurry. She explains the problem, and Isla responds by giving her a head pat. Meanwhile, the Dark Elves are engaged in sword training with Gia, but he is no match for them. He scolds the Dark Elves for not being more powerful, saying that they cannot protect the country in their current state. Isla approaches and gives him a head pat, embarrassing him in front of his students. The twins tell each other that they would also like a head pat. It's dinner time, and the twins lead Isla to the dining area. Special dishware is set aside for her, but she insists on using what everyone else is using. She explains that protecting the nation means protecting the people, and she can only do so if she understands their perspective. Maria then whispers something to Korea, and they get Isla a plate with her inscription on it. Isla is grateful and hugs them, giving them head pats, which makes the twins happy. Later, Isla is making rounds, while also seeing any improvement that could be made when she hears cries. She follows the sound and finds Korea in tears while Maria comforts her. Isla asks what the problem is, and Korea explains that she couldn't sleep. When Isla asks why, they share that they usually dream of good times with their mom, and it hurts to wake up to the reality that she is no longer with them. They also recount how, whenever one of them wakes up crying in the middle of the night, the other stays awake to ensure she's okay. Korea reassures Isla, saying that everything is fine and that they have been sleeping well. She mentions that this experience was a rare occurrence, so there is no need for Isla to worry. Isla responds by promising to sleep with them from now on, holding them close as they rest and vowing to always be there for them. The next morning, Isla suggests to Takuto what the next building should be. She then asks how Atu is doing, and Takuto replies that she is in a pretty amazing situation. He sees some hill giants approaching outside Dragontan, and Atu looks ready to take them on.